Welcome to PokeClass episode 28. It's finally here, the end of the season for most Pokemon players in the UK. Those of you in the US still have another month or so until your nationals, but for us, it's already been and gone. Sunday the 29th of May brought us one of the biggest tournaments of the year, second to Worlds, and it was bound to be the toughest and most exciting one of the year. This week, I'll share with you my personal experience of nationals in the form of a tournament report. We end up having just over 90 players in Masters, which gives us 7 Swiss rounds and a top 16 cut. I've chosen to play my Lux Chomp list that I've been using all season, even though I've been doing a lot of testing with Sableye in the run-up. As it turns out, Sableye would have been a very strong play, since Vilegar turned out to be so popular, but my Lux Chomp was heavily teched against Vilegar with a fairly heavy supporter line and Dialga G level X. So here's my Nationals 2011 report. I'm pretty pleased to be paired up with Vilegar, but I know this player is fairly experienced with the deck, so it can be tough. I start off with Dialga active and a Luxray benched, which is an awesome start, made even better when I top deck Dialga level X to shut down Vileplumes and Spiritombs straight away. He goes second and starts to Darkness Grace his Oddish into a Vileplume, rather than choosing the Ghastly, which may have been the better choice if he had known I had the level X. From here on, I managed to get the Warp Energy to level up and get Dialga to the bench as soon as possible, but I opt for going aggressive with Dialga for a few turns thanks to the inclusion of 2 Metal Energy in my list. This leads me to an early KO on a Gengar with a Remove Lost, followed by a Poison Bind from Roserade GL, which also avoided Fainting Spell. My opponent then starts fishing out parts of Machamp, so I know I need to get rid of them as soon as possible. A Bright Look and Flash Impact takes care of a bench Machop until a Machoke is staring at me from the bench next turn via a second Machop and a Darkness Grace. Fortunately, I have the use of trainers to get Crobat and Flash Bite with Dragon Rush to get rid of that one. Coming close to time, I think the Machamp threat is gone until he plays down another fully powered Machamp in one turn thanks to Broken Time Space. With me needing one prize and him taking out Pokemon after Pokemon, I don't want to lose it now. However, I use Pont to get the double colourless I need from the deck to Dragon Rush a bench Spiritomb for the KO. A close game, and I'm on to 1-0. I sit down opposite my opponent, who looks a little bit nervous, but we shuffle up, flip our basics, and I learn I'm playing another Vilegar. He starts Oddish and I start Luxray, and if he doesn't bench something, I have the Donk, but he benches a Ghastly and passes. I managed to get the turn 2 and 3 Dragon Rush off being able to use trainers and keep his Oddish stuck active. He has to draw and pass about 4 more times, managing to get a Vileplume out in the process, but it was still stuck in the active spot. By this time, I have an Uxie level X prepared for the KO. From here on, I managed to consistently take prizes until a single Gengar hits the field, which I prepare to face with my Dialga level X, similar to the previous game. A Remove Lost and 2 heads for me means that his Psychic and Rescue Energy are sent to the Lost Zone, and I take the game from there. After the game, he tells me he's only been playing for a few days, which I was surprised at, considering the way he played when he was able to. Very well played, and I'm on to 2-0. I'm feeling good about winning my first 2 games, as it puts me in a much better position when it comes to later in the tournament. But a mirror match was next, which I can struggle against, since I've teched more for Vilegar than the mirror. I start fairly strongly, being able to grab both my Garchomps, Dragonite and Ambipom before him to start getting the advantage in the colourless war, and having a Cyrus in my starting hand helped too. I think I started Uxie in this game, which isn't the best, but by running a fairly high count of Warp Energy meant that I could search out the level X and get it to the bench quickly to serve as a good source of draw. His turns aren't lasting long, and I notice he isn't playing any supporters after an initial collector at the beginning of the game. Along with me power spraying an Uxie at the start meant that he wasn't able to do much, and after about 15 minutes I was ahead by 4 prizes. I had another KO plan the next turn, but he draws and scoops the game when he sees no way back. I was fairly worried about this matchup, seeing as it can be quite tricky, but a good starting hand and double draws of Uxie level X meant that I could take the quick KOs needed to get to 3-0. Some of you may know Ross Gilbert from 6 Prizes, as he's written a few articles there recently, and he's my round 4 opponent, which I'm not overly excited about because I know what deck he's been playing for a while now. We both shuffle up, and I start Lucario GL to his Phanpy, with me going first. Of course, I don't have anything to do and I pass, possibly knowing what was coming next. His turn, he collectors for 2 Uxies and an unknown R, uses them to draw around 5 cards in total, and plays Broken Time Space, evolves the Donphan, attaches Fighting Energy and Expert Belt to KO my Lucario for the donk. Not the best way for your game to turn out when you're at 3-0, but that's just what his deck was designed to do. He's very apologetic since he's a nice guy, and I win another Cities playmat to sweeten the donk slightly. This puts me at 3-1 and I'm still on course for top cut. This round I get paired down against a 2-2, which isn't great for my resistance, but that's just how it goes sometimes. I open Luxray to her Spiritomb and Cyndaquil, with me going first. I attach and pass after benching a couple of other SP. On her turn, she says she has a bad hand and just uses Darkness Grace into Quilava after attaching a Fire Energy to the Cyndaquil beforehand. I already have the Luxray X in hand to get out of the trainer lock, but instead I just level up, attach energy and flash impact it for the KO to release me from the lock early on, as well as bringing up her Quilava. Unfortunately for her, all she can do is attach another energy and pass, and in my turn I'm able to double Flash Bite with Crobat and then flash impact again for the KO and the win. It's not the best of wins, but we play another for fun to pass the rest of the round time. I'm up to 4-1 and feeling pretty good in my chances of making top cut, until I see my next matchup. This is already a horrible matchup for SP, and I know if I can't get a decent start, then I'm not going to have much chance of winning this very important game. Unfortunately, I don't get the start I need. I managed to draw into an opening hand of 6 basics and a poker turn, definitely not what I wanted. His setup is fairly slow as I start draw passing until I finally hit a collector to grab a couple of Uxies. Even after using 2 setups, I'm still not drawing well at all, whereas he has started taking out and lost burning my Pokemon turn after turn. I'm already down by 4 prizes before I can even take a cheap one with Dragon Rush, but I'm too far behind to catch up, and now I'm down to 4-2. I'm feeling a little disappointed with the previous game, considering a win would guarantee me an easier game in top cut, but coming across the only Magnezoma champ on 3-1 is just fairly unlucky. I keep my spirits up and go into my next matchup needing the win for a chance to make it. Sitting down at the table, I'm actually hoping to see another Ghastly or Spiritomb start, since I'm very comfortable with the Vilegar matchup. When we turn over our basics, I'm pleased to find a Spiritomb plus Oddish start to my Luxray with the level X in hand. An early Bright Look means I can start to use my trainers to grab key parts of Dialga when I need it, but I don't actually bring it out until I've taken half my prizes. Cheap prizes off of Bright Look with my 2 Luxray level X's means I can take prizes while setting up for late game, with a Dragon Rush or 2 netting me another couple of prizes with his still at 6. At around the 20-minute mark, he has a Gengar with the level X in the active spot, and I have a Dialga sitting on the bench, preparing for a remove loss the next turn. Dialga being on the field means that I can power spray his level downs for 2 consecutive turns, allowing me to pull off a remove lost to put his Gengar in KO range from anything else on my bench. He doesn't do much on his turn except attempting a Poltergeist for low damage, and I have the return KO for my last prize just before time is called. I'm really happy to be ending Swiss at 5-2, facing and beating 3 Vilegar in the process, since that's what my deck is designed to do. There are a fair few people on 5-2, so it's all down to resistance to find out who's going to make the top 16. Standings are put up, and I make it in at 16th, leaving me waiting for a match with Yassine Sakoum, who is undefeated in Swiss. I know what deck he's playing, and I'm fairly confident since it's another Vilegar, but he has a Blissey tech which can cause a little trouble if I struggle to keep a consistent damage output. Believe it or not, this is one of the most fun and relaxed games I have of the day. I've never met Yassine before, but he's one of the nicest guys I've met during my time playing the game, and I knew I was in for a few good games from the start. Game 1 goes fairly well for me, as I'm able to take a steady lead in prizes while he starts setting up his trainer lock. His starting with Oddish means that I can get rid of it early on with Luxray, as well as being able to burn through my trainer field hand. I do make a misplay here by thinking my Dialga level X is prized when searching my deck with Premier Ball, but a later search of my deck shows that it is in there. This could have helped me more when he eventually managed to get a Vileplume out, but I don't think I would have had the resources to bring it back to the bench effectively. This match goes on for around 35 of the 60 minutes, with us tied at 2 prizes each. I'm starting to run out of resources to get the KOs, while my hand fills with trainers and I attempt to look as my own 10 plus hand away to limit his poltergeist attack, but I draw into 3 more trainers to keep his damage output fairly high. With Blissey sitting on the bench healing off the damage I'm trying to tack onto his active Gengar, there isn't much else I can do and he lands the last KO with Blissey's double edge. Game 2 goes much less smoothly for myself, with only my second slow start of the tournament, albeit not at the best of times. I start Uxie and have the Bebes in hand to grab the level X the following turn. I think he starts Oddish again and evolves into Gloon via broken time space after collecting for a couple of Ghastlies and Blissey. My turn, I'm desperately trying to get the KO on his Gloom with Uxie, but I whiff on the double colourless and have to use Psychic Restore for a mediocre 40. From here on he manages to get everything going, warping his Vileplume to the bench and starts to Shadow Rune my Uxie in reach of a KO the following turn. I manage to tack some damage onto Gengar with Uxie and Roserade before they both get KO'd by Poltergeist, but I eventually get a fully loaded Dialga ready and into the active spot. I have no other choice but to attack with Remove Lost to get rid of his only threat on the field after burning my hand down to limit the lock. Unfortunately, it comes down to a coin flip, where Heads gets rid of my last resort and Tails keeps Dialga there to sweep, but he hits the Heads he needs for Fainting Spell and my Dialga hits the discard pile. This eventually puts me in a very tough position which I can't come back from, and he uses Poltergeist and Shadow Rune to take the prizes he needs to move on to top 8. It's a shame the first game didn't pull off in the end, and Fainting Spell is tricky to play around, but his superior playing style and knowledge of the game clearly showed by the end of the 2 games we played. It was great to play such a skilled player, and as I mentioned earlier, it was a really relaxed and fun game to play, which is what it's really about at the end of the day. Yassine actually goes on to win the entire tournament, so a well deserved victory for him. So I finished the day at 16th, which I'm really pleased with, and I'm kind of going to miss playing my Lux Chomp I've been developing all season, but we're on to bigger and better things when we hit Heart Gold Soul Silver on. So that's pretty much all I have for you this week, and this will be my last video featuring the format Majestic Dawn onwards. This means that since the current season is over, Heart Gold Soul Silver onwards will be the subject of PokeClass in the future. That means loads of deck analysis, options for the new format, and the return of my deck surgery mini episodes. For all that and more, make sure you check back next week for the next episode of PokeClass. Don't forget to subscribe, and thanks for watching.